What do we do now? People want to know. They realize what we're doing isn't working. They see all of the violence and the corruption and the fraud and the recruiting of children. And I say there is in California an assembly bill called AB 390 that is sponsored by Tom Amiana, who's an assemblyman in San Francisco. And that bill would treat marijuana like alcohol, for adults, of course. What would happen if we were to do that? Well, in my opinion, 5 things would happen, all of them beneficial and all of them right away. The first thing that would happen if we were to treat marijuana like alcohol would be that we as taxpayers in the state of California would literally save $1 billion that now we spend of our tax money in a futile effort to eradicate marijuana as well as to prosecute and incarcerate nonviolent marijuana users. Now, I can tell you how successful we are in eradicating marijuana. First of all, in the year 2008, in 542 different raids, the state of California was able to seize something on the order of 2.9 million marijuana plants, which they tout as having a street value of billions of dollars, etc. Nevertheless, even though that victory occurred, marijuana was still the largest cash crop in the state of California in the year 2008. Number 2 is grapes, by the way, if you care. So we can save that money, that $1 billion. It's futile, it's hopeless, and it's not working. That's $1 billion that we could save. The second thing that would happen is, according to the chair of the State Board of Equalization, which is involved with taxation in our state, we would be able to generate revenue of $1.3 billion in the state of California alone every year by taxing the marijuana. Now, under the program of Assemblyman Amiano, we would cut the street price in half, because you have to reduce the price in order to drive the illegal dealers out of business. But even with a surcharge of $50 per ounce of marijuana and all the regular sales taxes, we would then generate $1.3 billion in money. So now we have a shift of our California budget deficit annually of $2.3 billion. You'd think somebody would notice. I have. But the third thing is more important than the first 2. In fact, it trumps the first 2. And that is, we would make marijuana less available for our children than it is today. Because right this minute, it is easier for our young people to get marijuana if they want to, that's the key, than it is a 6-pack of beer. Why? Because today the alcohol is regulated and controlled by the government, and the illegal drugs are controlled by illegal drug dealers, and they don't ask for ID. By the way, there's no quality control, etc. either. The fourth thing that would occur is that this entire medical marijuana controversy would go away. The federal government are acting like a bunch of bullies coming in and prosecuting and arresting very sick people in an effort to try to keep any form of reason with regard to the use of marijuana at bay. I have my own reasons as to why they would do that, but one way or the other, the federal government's law trumps the state law, which I certainly acknowledge, and they're arresting and prosecuting very sick people. The fifth thing that would happen is really important as well, and that is the entire hemp industry, which goes back in our country, back to the colonies, and in history goes back thousands of years, is a viable industrial crop. As valuable as cotton, in a lot of ways it surpasses cotton. For numbers of things. You can get more paper pulp from an acre of hemp as you can an acre of trees, and it costs much less, plus it takes 20 years to grow the trees and only 1 season to grow the hemp. Hemp, by the way, is the stalk of the marijuana plant, has no value whatsoever with regard to smoking or any mind-altering properties. Very fibrous plant. It also takes in the marijuana seeds, which can be jerry-rigged to have no THC value in them whatsoever. In fact, I can go to local markets and buy hemp granola, quite nutritious, quite good stuff. I am told that the diesel engine was originally designed to run on hemp oil. Hemp oil is much better facilitator of a clean burning fuel even than corn. So we could, in effect, use this remarkably well. In fact, you go back thousands of years to ancient Greek, the word cannabis and canvas were interchangeable. So they used hemp to make canvas. By the way, for remember old Ironsides, the USS Constitution, the sails for that were made from hemp. The original copy of the Constitution was on parchment made from hemp. This was a viable product. all throughout the colonies and still is a viable product. But unfortunately, our merchants in the United States now must import their raw material from those radical countries like Canada and England, for example, where they now can grow hemp. So this simply would be able to rejuvenate the entire hemp industry to the benefit of our merchants and our public. Why don't we do this? Why don't we treat marijuana like alcohol? Why don't we control, regulate, and tax marijuana? Because the people are ready to do that. And it's the federal government that comes out of its tree about marijuana, about medical marijuana taking a radical position, about hemp taking a radical position. Why would the federal government do that? Why would the federal government care? Now, this is my opinion. I cannot base this upon anything other than my observations, but the federal government realizes that at least 75% of everybody in the United States of America today that uses any form of illicit substance whatsoever uses only marijuana. If they were to lose those people, if that were regulated and controlled such that that was no longer a criminal activity, everybody in our country using every other drug combined, the numbers would not justify this colossal prison industrial complex, colossal bureaucracy that we have today to fight the war on drugs. And they realize it. Now listen to me. I have sat one-on-one in the office of 2 sitting congressmen in the county of Orange, very conservative folks, asking them about this issue. And privately they told me, each one of them in his own words, Jim, many people in Washington realize the war on drugs is not winnable, but it's eminently fundable. And all of these federal agencies are addicted to the drug war funding. So don't look for change from the federal government. It's not going to happen because every federal agency we have gets extra money added to its budget every year, and you can see that added to their budget to fight the war on drugs. And it's not just the obvious ones, the big ones, like the Department of Justice or Department of State or all the military. That's pretty straightforward. But it's also the little agencies as well. It's the Bureau of Land Management. It's the Bureau of Indian Affairs. The Department of Agriculture all get tens of millions of dollars extra in its budget to fight the war on drugs. They don't want to give up the money. And if they start losing marijuana, if they somehow are losing the prosecution of marijuana, they stand in jeopardy of losing the entire war of drugs funding because all of the other numbers of everybody else combined in our country will not justify this colossal bureaucracy.